Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the performance series. Today, we will be having Eloise Bruce as our performer. She will be performing some awesome poetry, and I will let her take it from here.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. It's just really an honor to be a part of this lead up to the New Jersey Governor's Awards for this year. And Jocelyn, I really thank you for asking me to take part in this. And I'm very grateful to everyone who's joined, and especially to my friends and family far and near who are tuning in. I'm going to read in just a few minutes 8 or 9 poems, some of which appear in books published by two New Jersey presses. One is Cavan Carey Press, and the other is Ragged Sky Press. All of the poems that I'm going to be reading will have some connection to New Jersey, though I do tend to never write about one thing, so we may go some other places and come back. Before I read, though, Jocelyn had asked me to talk a little bit about the award that I won in 2018. And I'm just going to show you. I pulled it out this morning. This is what an award looks like. And so I am not only a poet, but I'm also a theater artist. And as I said, I won the Governor's Award for Arts Education in 2018. What I do is I am a coach and a teaching artist with the Foundation for Educational Administration and also for young audiences of New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania. And it was young audiences that nominated me for the award. And I won along with two other young audiences artists, one of which has been in this series, that's Mark Wong, and the other one is Queen Nur. So the first question that I was asked is, what did the Governor's Award mean to me? Well, it was really validation because I'd been doing work in arts education for 40 years, and 30 of those years had been in New Jersey. And so it was just really great that somebody thought, oh, that's what she's been doing. And also, they asked about why I think arts are more important now than ever. And I've actually been thinking a lot during the pandemic about the healing power of art. And I think that almost everybody is experiencing that particular power, and the streaming of plays, and just all of the generosity of artists coming on and doing things is really quite the healing experience. And the impact of arts education on me and my life was another question. And when I was young, we didn't have artists coming into the schools. I grew up in Florida. But I loved that so many of my teachers did art in their classrooms. We were always doing plays. We played flutophones so we could learn to read music in elementary school. And there were always daily hands-on activities. And then by the time I got to middle school and high school, I took every art class that was offered in school. And outside of school, I would ride my bike to the local community theater, and I would do anything. I'd run lights, I'd sweep the floor, and then finally they let me on stage, and I was able to really pursue that career for a very long time, working in the theater as an actor and a director. Something that inspires me in this time, I've been really present to creativity in the time of the pandemic and how there are creative solutions that are happening. And I am very sure that arts education is absolutely the very best way to teach anyone to solve problems. Creativity is really the pathway to problem solving. And the last question was Words of Wisdom for the Class of 2020. And I am not going to read my own words. I'm going to read something by the poet Rilke that I have been for many years giving to people in my life who have graduated. And this is from Letter to a Young Poet. Be happy with your growth, in which, of course, you can't take anyone with you. And be gentle with those who stay behind. Be confident and calm in front of them, and don't torment them with your doubts, and don't frighten them with your faith or joy, which they won't be able to comprehend. Seek out some simple and true feeling of what you have in common with them, which doesn't necessarily have to alter when you yourself change again and again. And when you see them, love life in a form that is not your own, and be indulgent toward those who are growing old, who are afraid of the loneliness that you trust. And don't expect any understanding, but believe in love that is being stored up in you like an inheritance. And have faith that in this love there is strength and a blessing so large that you can travel as far as you wish without having to step outside it. So, to the 2020 class, that's Rilke, and that's what I would say to you, but he says it so much better. So now I'm going to read some poems to you, some of my own poems. And this first poem is from a book that my husband and I just published with Ragged Sky Press. And here it is right here. And the book has poems by both of us, and it explores his dementia, which of course we're both experiencing. And since Rilke talked about love, this is a love poem. It's called Hundredth Love Poem. When we are gone, my love, rabbits will still breed and rest under our sigu pine. The bones of our dogs will still rest in its roots, while our nieces and nephews dispose of our paper lanterns and haul our tansu chest and Nakashima table to the east and the west to place them under their eaves. Children will still walk past without stopping to gather small pine cones. Sometimes the little girls will cry because of some cruelty at school that day. Miles away, the beach and the ocean would still recognize me, and I would speak words of love to you. I would, if I still had breath. The next poem that I'm going to read is set in Leonia, and it's a North Jersey poem for those of you who are not here in New Jersey. And it takes place at one of our family reunions. And it's called Orgami. He ties hundreds of knots, all kinds, from a bimini twist to a butterfly bend. Zev is 7 years old, and my husband's second cousin twice removed. After last night's storm, the ground is muddy, and even under the large tent, the chairs sink a bit into the earth. We sit together under the waxing gibbous moon in a backyard in New Jersey, as he ignores his baked ziti in favor of folding origami, another passion. He is elfin, and I've only seen him twice before, first as an infant, and then as a toddler who was obsessed with loops and circles. We have never spoken before, and after he makes 8 or so intentional folds, he asked me, "Do you want a frog or something I made up myself?" I choose the latter, and in a blink he hands me an octopus and then folds a frog. Life is sweet, surrounded by the summer darkness. I tell him about sailing to Bimini with my brother 50 years ago and mention Hemingway, Poisonwood, and eating pawpaw. He tells me about the hottest pepper in the world, Carolina Reaper. It is 1,569 and 300 Scoville heat units. I don't know what that is. And the conversation loops from capsaicin to squares of origami paper. As we sit, my memory circles back to the shrimp boats of my childhood and the border of small red pepper bushes along my father's driveway. I mention the peppers I suspend in vinegar each year and drizzle on collard greens. He will send me some Carolina Reapers. I give him my card with an image of cupped hands filled with dirt sprouting from the palms. He stares at it for a long time. I know nothing of knots and peppers. I cannot fold a paper crane. What I know of paper is how to put words onto it and how to loop and circle them into a satisfying shape. The next poem that I'm going to read takes place up on the Sourland Mountains, and it's a road that I've been on a lot. My good friend Julie August, who might be on tonight, I hope she is, used to live on Hollow Road. And this poem is called Hollow Road. Dangerous names rise from the sorrel soil, catbrier, sourland, slave, devil's half-acre, kidnapping, witch hazel. I came to find a poem, but once I reached Zion and the cattail bridge, the rushing water's memory of Pangea and tiny winged Ichthyosaurus flitting above the lake, a stillness, and I am reoriented, laughing, somewhere chattering, and fluting uphill, boys playing, and meadowlarks. Shadows dapple my skin. I sit on a border, listening to the whispering stones. Soon I rest my cheek on an ancient one warmed by the sun. I am a dinosaur. I am a bird. I am a child again, a drowsy vessel floating in time. This next poem gave me the title from my book that came out from Cavan Carey. It takes place a few miles from here, and the name of the book was called Rattle. The rattle doesn't come till the end of the poem, but it's called Community Garden, Lawrenceville, New Jersey. The voices of cicadas sizzle. The weight of the well's water creaks on the Muslim woman's red wagon wheels. A bee buzzes within a closed squash blossom. The Chinese couple hoe the earth softly as with a calligrapher's brush. The garden is filled with the small sounds of so many breathing. The man from Trinidad chirps to the tall African, wondering what stinks to high heaven. My manure is making a lot of noise. If a place and time is a destination, I have arrived in a chorus of tongues, wing beats, and the breeze through stalks of corn. Here even the dirt speaks. The sun beats down on us, pulsing like our blood, and I have grown gourds to rattle. We're back up in North Jersey, somewhere on the train north of Rahway for this poem. It also flashes back to Macon, Georgia, where I went to college, and a train that I used to take in my childhood that some of you may have been on before, called the Nancy Hanks. But we're going to start out on New Jersey Transit. in the winter, and this is called Cold Train. Tonight, I tell my husband, all week I have been almost hearing poems on the train as we bounce. Not a slow jam, baby bump, berry white ride. The rails grumble beneath us. The lady conductor announces Rahway change for Long Branch, all static. The poem pours from the mouth anyway, as from the earth's hot core. A girl speaks the poem I can almost hear into her cellular phone. She makes the poem of night and electricity. The frost heaves and enjams the line. Steam rises off the ice. The words milkshake and salt shaker go jiggy under the train's fluorescence. And just as she starts to get low, a refrain of tears almost rushes past in a swirl of raw, shivering absence. I take it in the chest like a bullet. My ears grab sheets of sound. The conductor calls, Macon, Georgia, next stop Macon. It is the end of summer, and the dome car's roof slides through a thick kudzu canopy. This train is named after a racehorse, and the horse after Abraham Lincoln's mother, who died of milk sickness. She drank milk from a cow that had eaten the poisonous white snake root. I discharged down the steps of the Nancy Hanks. The whites of my eyes, pale as that poison, track the shiny buttons of the porter's clean jacket, finding his eyes, the girl's eyes, whose whites are as bright as salt, as milk and frost. It's snowing, and the girl changes for Long Branch. Out the window, I see the snow clinging to her dreads. This next poem is called Gravity, and I wrote a whole series of poems that had to do with physics. And though this poem goes to the North Pole and then elsewhere in the very middle, it is at a very famous place on Mercer Street in Princeton, near the Institute for Advanced Studies. So this is a poem that's numbered, and it's called Gravity. 1. Lemmings migrating across the North Pole will not become dislodged before plunging into the Gulf of Bothnia. And the emperor penguin, who seems to be hanging by 2 webbed feet from the bottom of the world, isn't going to dive into outer space. 2. Every time I drive by, it is there, a designated historical site, testament to up and down as a confusing invention. Einstein contemplated gravity while living at 112 Mercer Street, latitude 40 degrees, 20 feet, 55 inches north, and as yet, the house has not fallen off the earth. 9 feet and 45 inches north of Einstein's house, a Rutgers professor contemplates the visible universe, likening it to a membrane embedded within a larger universe, much like a strand of filmy seaweed floating in the sea. 3. Praise God, Newton's apple fell on his head rather than spearing itself on Christopher Wren's spire atop St. Paul's Cathedral, or worse, flying off into some black hole in space and traversing time only to be plucked by Eve from an apple tree in the Garden of Eden, or conking the head of an imaginary sailor on Galileo's imaginary ship, traveling through time on an impossibly calm sea, or landing in the fruit bowl on our kitchen table to be peeled, pared, and shared by my love and me, who know each other as well as any two people, swapping polarities at will. If we were to encounter Sir Isaac Newton somewhere in time, we would tell him there is no time without velocity. And if my husband and I could jump onto the speed of light, holding a mirror in front of our faces, our images would be looking back at us always. Einstein and Newton have surely crossed paths somewhere in time, traveling on some dimension, Albert holding a mirror and Newton nursing the bump on his noggin, both cruising at the speed of light. By now, surely Albert has set Isaac straight. I have three more poems that are all part of a long poem that's in sections that I have been working on during the quarantine. And the poem right now, the long poem, is titled Somewhere in New Jersey, because that's where I am in quarantine. And they're all in numbered sections, and then they have a small title that sort of locates the reader. And so this first one is number 24, and it's called The Small Door. The small door is a door back into the pandemic and the room where I'm trying to tell the story of my husband, our house, street, young boarder, his wife pregnant back in India. How he puts on his mask and rubber gloves and shops for our food. How he brings mangoes home and ice cream. He lectures us about leaving the house, and we mostly comply. Wearing earbuds, he talks with his wife for hours and hours. We have no children to fret over us. He frets, and we are grateful. His name is Narendra, which means Lord of Men. 53 days in quarantine and counting. We have planted lettuce, tomatoes, and useful herbs. The wind has blown our plastic recycling across the yard. The youngest girl from next door is picking it up, placing each piece back in the bin. Her name is Hope. Number 25 in the series, Mother's Day. At the farmer's market, women are transformed into masked mimes, silently pointing to bok choy and strawberries. The small, comforting sound of a sparrow chirping in the rafters above the stalls sprinkles the air. A boy, face covered with a red bandana, looks up. Small, bright eyes, rimmed in tiny feathers, gaze back at him. Our street is very quiet now, deserted but for the occasional dog and walker or child on a bike. No cars to speak of, and even the volume of play is muted. Only birdsong interrupts the silence, hushed now, like the cemetery where I went with my granny to tend her mother's grave. And here's the last one. We'll end up in New Jersey, but we're going to travel quite a few places. And this is one of the times when we didn't listen to Naren, and we did go out to the farmer's market, and it's called Keeping Lists. Oh no, that was the last poem that we went to the farmer's market, sorry. This last one, this is the last poem. It's called Keeping Lists. Michelangelo's illiterate assistant left his studio with an illustrated grocery list, bowls of fennel and salad, 2 jugs of wine and loaves of bread, tortelli, a herring, and anchovies quickly sketched. A list to comfort and bring order, and though mundane alongside the 10 Commandments, the 5 senses, the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the 7 dwarves, it is a wonder. as is Woody Guthrie's list of New Year's resolutions, reminding him to change his socks, make up his own mind, love everyone, wake up and fight. These days, while the world spins out of control, I keep the chaos at a safe distance with my list of the extinct, diagnosed, dead, and recovered. My list helped me to sleep when the news is very bad. I travel from state to state, and though I have never eaten sugar pie in Indianapolis, Indiana, or tasted lutefisk in Bismarck, North Dakota, or been to Charleston, West Virginia for a pepperoni roll, I list them in the dark night. I am trying to sleep in Trenton, New Jersey, famous for the tomato pie. So thank you so very much for being here with me for this time and leading up to the Governor's Awards that are coming up in June. I say be well, stay safe, and love each other.
That was truly excellent. So thank you so much for sharing your wonderful poetry with us. Where else can we go and find your poetry?
You can order them from Amazon. You can get them from Barnes and Noble. I mean, all of those places. With the new book from Ragged Sky, you can actually go directly to the press, which is in Princeton.
So I think we'll put that in the chat, the link to that.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I think someone put the link to that in the chat.
Oh, perfect. That's so great.
Well, I hope everyone had as wonderful as a time as I did, and I assume Eloise did. We will be continuing the performance series. Make sure that you tune in every Friday at 6 p.m. to see all the other wonderful performers, and a wonderful, awesome thank you again to Eloise.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Thanks for doing this.
Yes. Okay. Goodbye, everyone. Stay safe. Stay comfortable. Goodbye.